Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the first Kaizen Central of 2022. Delighted to see you all. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday and New Year. Pardon me, I have a Christmas frog in the throat. I shall be letting people in as we go, so do forgive me if I'm slightly distracted by that. People are piling in. We have a terrific story for you today, and I have to say it's one that I was delighted to get involved in. We went to Birmingham, made a film about this particular story because to me it was a fascinating insight into so many different aspects of digitalization, scale up. It was about and how government interacts with manufacturers. I have to say it was just all round fantastic. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tim Mulqueen, sales director from Ramfoam in Birmingham, and Paul Milne. Delighted that you've joined us. Thank you, Paul, from the Warwick Manufacturing Group from Warwick University. As we'll see, WMG played a massive part in this story. But first, Tim, I'd be really grateful if you could just give us a sort of overview about Ramfoam, very quickly what Ramfoam does, size of the company, the innovative product you came up with, and then what happened next after the start of the pandemic.
So we've been established since 1995. We're probably the largest polyethylene converter in Europe. And as we discussed when you visited our facility, we cover pretty much every sector. And as the pandemic hit, naturally, we saw the aviation side of our business start to shrink, the event side of the business, and, the B2C. So we were faced with looking at what we could do. And the first thing I looked at, there was a global shortage of PPE. And we were approached by many companies looking for the foam headpiece for a visor. It's normally a soft PU material. And we did quite a lot of business in that. And friends of mine that were in the medical industry, as doctors and nurses at the time, said they're very uncomfortable. Surely you can do something better with the materials that you have. And plasterzote material made in the UK, medically approved, LD33 and 45s, chemically inert, great qualities. So we set quite quickly to see how we could get a visor down to maybe one piece. Well, you can't get it to one piece because there's two different materials, and normally there's five, there's an adhesive, there's an elastic, there's pins. And the reason why the visor manufacturers and a lot of the masks and things did go abroad, there's a lot of human interaction needed. So we managed to get it down to two pieces, and we pulled in some of our sort of automotive background and went out to market to look at what was out there and what machinery was there, because the government in the beginning had gone out and sort of secured aprons and the masks, and the visors were sort of the third or the fourth thing. So the presses that we use are the same presses that are used to press the aprons. So first of all, we had a issue trying to source machinery. So quite quickly, we got in touch with Warwick Manufacturing Group. Myself and Paul go back some time, and Paul, thanks Paul, and his team quite quickly got on to finding either press machinery capacity or actually presses that were for sale. Whilst this was happening in the background, because it was every hour was a changing target, we were looking at how we could improve the design. Obviously, you can't just sell into the hospital. One thing that I can say about the process that we went through, Deloitte and PwC and the likes, we were extremely vetted. and we had to meet BSEM 166 standards. We had to satisfy the health and safety executive of the hospital. We had to convince the government that we were obviously financially stable and that we could deliver on what we said we could. So whilst Paul and his team were helping us find the capacity, we were pushing on trying to get the specifications that were needed to supply government. Now, Donald Trump, as soon as the pandemic hit, he stopped all medical materials or medical items that could be used to manufacture medical materials from leaving the USA, which created a problem as the material at the time, which is the optical film, it has to have a optical level of 0.1, it has to be anti-glare, anti-fog, and we couldn't get the material. So we had to engage with DuPont, Mitsubishi, in order for them to start to look to manufacture within Europe. We failed a couple of the tests when we were trying to get the specifications because we were using different materials. But within the space of 2 or 3 weeks, thankfully, we managed to get full BSEM 166 approval, secure material supply with the help again of Paul and his team. Whilst we'd got one spare facility that's around 55,000 square foot, by no means had we got the space to ramp up to this volume of what was originally 5 million units per week. And quite luckily, and there's always a little bit of luck in everything, a facility came up within a mile of one of our facilities. We called it a Nightingale facility for us. And what we didn't want to take any risk with is, having moved factories several times and got factories set up across the globe, we know the pain of when you install a facility and then you realize bottleneck slowdowns and the cost then of moving electrics and powers. And I'd never been one hands up to, I probably didn't really know what digital mapping of a factory was this time, 18 months, 2 years ago. And Paul and Bays jumped through hoops because as government, we couldn't get people on site because of COVID, but Paul managed to get the guys to come to the facility, map it all out. And as you saw, everything that WMG did with the factory mapping mirrored what was happening. And that ensured that when we, within we were on a war footing. I mean, even now my hairs are on end. Within 5 weeks, this was happening, and the passion of the team and how fast we were moving and dedication, we couldn't get it wrong because in my eyes, every single person at that point in time, we didn't know about the virus. We know a lot more now than we did then. We were all sort of trying to do our best and not knowing what this actually was. And if one of these guys has saved one life, I think that, it was a job well done from the, all the way down to the cleaners, all the way down to the kitchen staff that we had, all the way down to the shop floor staff. Every single person played an immense part in helping our country. And I'm immensely proud of it, but it was moving that fast. And looking back, the team that we had, we're still very close now. And it was just unbelievable.
Okay. Well, Tim, the bit in that I think I mentioned this in the note, but the fact was that you, before this, were a £15 million a year company. The contract you actually got from the government was for £149 million.
Yes.
So you were looking at a contract that a company 10 times your size was going to have to fulfill. So if I can, I'd just like to bring Paul into the conversation to talk about the way that you were brought into. I know you and Tim go back, but how WMG, HVMC, Bays and all that, how it actually worked. Because to tell you the truth, when I heard the story for the first time, when I went and did it with your colleague Mark up at Ramfoam, Mark Swift from WMG, I was astounded at how smoothly it appeared to have gone. Paul, tell us how it worked from WMG's point of view. So,
good evening, one and all. It's a pleasure to join you on this call. Universities are fantastic. In the UK, we've got some of the best universities, but what we're not so great at is translating that expertise and getting that working to the benefit of our companies. And our companies, having worked in industry myself, work very, very hard. So really, as part of WMG, which is wired a little bit differently from most academic departments, it puts industry at the heart of everything it does. And through the Catapult network, which bridges a gap between academia and industry, deliberately so. So when the call came out, it was through Bays, through to the Catapults. Can anybody support this company? I saw the name Tim Mulqueen and Ramfoam. I said, yeah, I know this guy. I'll be delighted to get in touch and see what we can do to help, because we're here to help manufacturing companies. We're here to make sure that our UK manufacturing increases through the various challenges thrown at it. And this was a really challenging time for manufacturers. Many manufacturers at the time were furloughed. A really tough time. We were supporting on at WMG through a number of projects. We had one a ventilator challenge we supported with, which is a sort of an updated iron lung construction, and a number of these contracts came through, shared out amongst the Catapult network. I was able to get in touch with Tim on the back of that, find out quite quickly what was needed. First of all, as Tim said, to find capacity in the supply chain. Most people phoning around were delighted to help and help out that way. And then, as Tim said, and I find this absolutely remarkable, because it's a scale up from tens of thousands to millions within 5 weeks. I think from clock start to clock stop on it. So is really impressive, and doing that at the best of times. If you're in manufacturing, scale up is not an easy business to do. So being able to help with that and take some of the risk away, and to give Ramfoam the confidence. I think it was on one Friday you talked about it, and I was trying to persuade you the benefits, Tim, on using the digital twin approach to sort of simulate the factory. I think it was on the Monday lunchtime we met with the guys, and they showed you. I think your jaw dropped to the floor, and and what they were able to do, and that was but it was delighted to be able to play our small part in and Tim's energy at that time, I have to say, was really infectious. He really motivated the team, and it was quite something to behold.
And I think we also proved as well that, high volume manufacturing, we could have produced probably 7 million of these a week in the UK, in the Black Country. It was, we proved it could be done in the UK, high volume manufacturing. One thing that I do, that we instilled was, we all celebrated our weaknesses. And we've got a gentleman from the automotive background, Richard Brighton, that was at the auto-based facility, and every day we'd have an 8 o'clock meeting and a 5 o'clock meeting. Things, as I say, we're moving that quick, but if we couldn't do something, we put our hands up and said, right, I can't do that, what can you do? And we were literally, it just was a team. And I think, again, it was because of the passion and the cause it was for, and every person at the time, because we were going around to all the hospitals, and in the beginning, because it wasn't, should we say, approved at that point, we were just giving stuff away. So we gave thousands of these items away because nurses and people on the front line hadn't got anything. So, and the people that were having them were sending photos in. We just said, oh, if you like them, a bit of a focus group, can we get your feedback? Are they too tight? Does this happen? Every single photo that we received, and we've got a collage in our factory, everybody was smiling, wearing one. And they are, I'll gladly send every single person on the call one. When you do wear one of these visors, you forget that you're wearing it. It's comfortable. It's stretch fit, Even myself, the amount of people that used to drink their coffee with the visor still down. And
But Tim mentioned I don't know if you've mentioned the wings yet for the what you heard feedback from the nurses.
Yeah, so we couldn't have focus groups, because at that time you couldn't have more than 6 in a room, and it's 2 meter distances. And so we asked for remote sort of feedback from people. And at the time, a lot of nurses were getting, and doctors were getting sores behind their ears from the face masks. And I'm sure all of us, especially wearing glasses, know that your ears do get a bit sore with these masks on if you're wearing them, you know, for 12 hours a day. So we actually decided to put ears on our headband. And that's one of the things that all the staff that wear them, it saves their ears. There's no pressure, there's no sores, and there's just two little wings at the back. And that was just from listening to what was the customer or the user at that time. And the one good thing about our products was, whilst it has a lower whole life cost, so it's recyclable. You know, out of everything that we did, not one thing went to landfill. Everything was recycled. Everything's reusable. It can be cleaned with hydrochloride solution. It can go in a dishwasher. It can go through bleach, soap and water. So not only did the DHSP get, you know, they weren't single use. You could carry on using them and using them and using them.
I understand that you didn't actually go the full distance with the contract, Tim. What happened?
No, so towards maybe 3/4 of the way through, maybe, the government actually cut the contract, so it didn't end up being the 149 million for the 72 million. We ended up delivering 55 million.
Did they say why?
No, we can presume why, but no.
Okay, yeah, you know why I'm asking the question, because there was a story today about lateral flow tests,
yes,
which the government was pledged to make in this country. Then they cancelled the contract and sent it to China. So, you know, I think there's going to be a little bit of noise being made about that in the press tomorrow. Paul, I'm going to play a little bit of video. This is, I hope, can you all see the factory layout there? Yeah. And this is the digital twin in action, and the factory itself. And Tim, I remember you telling me when we were making this film that there was it was quite astonishing to be able to see the whole thing in action. You know, looking at with a tablet with the digital twin going on and seeing it actually happening as they projected.
Yep. It was actually tremendous, and I wish one thing, you know, we've had Andy Street come to the facility. We've had obviously Paul and the team come, and I think the one thing that I want more to come out of everything was, yes, that was great. It was 2020. You know, we created a lot of jobs. I think there was 1,500 jobs safeguarded and that relied on that project, and the economies it helped. But it's how the government, on where we are in Haynes Road, I'm not sure if everyone knows Tiverdale, Dudley, Wolverhampton. It was the home of engineering, home of manufacturing. You've got the Black Country Museum, and it's quite sad to see how it is today. And I guarantee you, just on our one industrial estate, there are companies on there that can benefit from a bit of digitization, or because I wasn't, but hands up, I was not a believer. I thought, oh, I know how to do it. I can do it better, or we know how to do it. We've always done it like this, and I've done this for X amount of years. But having seen it, and it can be difficult allowing someone to come into your business and tell you what to do, because we all think that we've done it, we've tried that method, and here we go again. But having embraced it and actually gone with the change, we proved that look at what we could do. A manufacturer, 10 times the turnover from the Black Country.
But Paul, I think it was a remarkable demonstration, and I know that there are people, maybe even some people on this call, who have expressed a little bit of, how should I put it, just skepticism about the way the whole support structure works at the catapult level and so on. But I think you guys leapt into action, and without you, this wouldn't have happened. Is that fair to say?
I think that's really for Tim to say. I mean, we are here to help manufacturing companies. We are paid by government coin, and our universities, one way or another, are paid by government coin. So they are a resource that, you know, I'm really passionate about. We should be using more. I think you touched on a few things that is, having some consistency within government so that we are able to help. We're tied to a funding cycle. So where we are in that funding cycle makes an incredible amount of difference, because we can't be turned on and turned off like a tap. Capability is either here or it isn't. It was fortunate at the time, there was a lot of closure within the manufacturing sector. So yes, we had resource available in the team to turn to this. And because of its importance, I put it number one, top of our priority, and put, quite a sizable team to work on it, because I could see the impact straight away. And, if I could take some of the risk out of that scale up process, and that's classically what a digital twin is able to do, and to give confidence that I think early on in the process, we had lined up one side of the factory with some piece of equipment. And I think Tim, or one of your colleagues, Richard, might have said, "Oh, we can't do it that way because of PowerPoint," and we were able to change it around within minutes. So we just you could do that digitally, of course. But imagine doing that on the factory floor.
No, and it would have meant that potentially we'd have been a lot slower starting up with bottlenecks. I mean, the thing is with our material, so foam, they're 2 meter by 1 meter sheets. The pallets are 2 meters high. All of a sudden, we'd got in the height, we'd got 15 trucks coming in a day at 40-foot articulated wagons and 30 going out. So you could see quite quickly, within 3 days, we could have just had a factory full of foam and not been able to move. We were operating 3 shifts. That modeling was priceless. And I can see where, if we go back, say, 3 years, and we've had this discussion several times at our facility with Warwick Manufacturing Group, I know what it's like when you're looking for help and you get this form comes into your email box that's about 37 pages long, and it's asking for your recyclability policy, your electricity policy, your green policy. It's asking for lots and lots and lots of questions, and it can be quite daunting. And we filled in lots of things, and by the time we filled it, we've either missed the funding, or it was it the ERG, I think, the European Growth Fund. Yeah. And if you didn't tick so many boxes, it was difficult. So potentially a lot of us think, well, we're not going to get it, or we don't bother with it. And all I can say is keep pushing, because I know that government are trying to simplify things, but when you get the help that you need and the joining of the minds, look at what we achieved.
Well, I'd like to pick up on that, because I know that what happened to you and Ramfoam, Tim, was extraordinary. But let's just imagine that an SME at a much smaller scale of government procurement, not 10 times turnover, which of course, as some, I think you said, is sort of war footing level. But just imagine that government procurement was more evenly shared out in the SME community, and the processes by which one could tender and maybe make partnerships so that SMEs could get some of these contracts. The impact that has on UK manufacturing is extraordinary. And I think as we're looking now in the sort of post-pandemic, post-Brexit era, a lot of reshoring going, a lot of intent to reshore. I'm wondering, Paul, if the injection of government assistance and government money in the form of a procurement contract, if it was sort of smooth, shared out at a lower level, but a wider level as well, that would have an enormous impact on the manufacturing sector, wouldn't it? I hope I'm not being naive here, but it seems to me like a great idea.
Yes, I think there's definitely something in procurement. We don't need to look too far. HS2, what's the UK suppliers on HS2? Yeah, I can see people shaking their heads. It's another missed opportunity, but it won't be the last infrastructure project, and it's one we can solve. What tends to happen, and I've seen this firsthand, is a large prime will stick up a hand and say, yes, we will do that, and form an alliance, and will say, yes, we will ensure there's local supply chain. But when push comes to shove, it's the first thing out the door. It's same thing when they sign up to innovation agendas. It's the first thing out the door, and it all comes about delivery, and then it's cap in hand back to government. So we do need to change that dial. As SMEs are an incredibly powerful part of UK economy, and we can lobby our government and hold them to account and make sure that actually we do get the opportunities to bid for such work. And there's huge opportunities coming with Brexit. I wasn't a fan, I have to say, that we can reshore reshore various manufacturing. Look at the same sustainability. Is it really sustainable to ship goods from halfway around the world when we could get them a lot more locally? We've seen disruptions to supply chains over the last year. Wouldn't security of supply be a much more important now? And we can make the argument to have local supply and build local supply chains. And this is where I see the catapults playing an enormous amount, because we can help companies get ready for the opportunities. If you haven't spoken to your catapult organization, speak to them. If you don't know what they are, I'm more than welcome you to pester me, because as I say, it's UK taxpayers' money. Let's make it work and take advantage for UK manufacturing.
And I think what Tim said, if I can just, what Tim said is very germane to that point, Paul. I'm sorry Ram Shanker's not on the call, because he's a great advocate of design smarter. And what UK, in terms of the visors we're importing, were actually poorly designed. They didn't work very well, and they had 5 parts. Tim designed something that was cheaper and replicable, and recyclable and reusable, and volume manufacturing in the UK. We can do this. We don't have to rely on the fact that just because it's done, cheaply elsewhere, we can't find smarter ways of doing it.
But there's also, we had a meeting. I mean, I started to go into, with Andy Street, Mayor of Birmingham, I started to go into rules of origin. So we're all trying to be green now, and there's a big drive towards green and recycling and reusability and upcycling, and it's coming very hard. And there's so much that we can do. Like if you look at Dubai, we have a facility there. They have a huge drive at the minute called Emiratization. So it's about keeping the money in the country, buying from in country, looking at what we can do. It's called Saudiization 2030, Make in India. All these initiatives, they appear to be working from my first-hand experience with them. And it should be, we look at the likes of JCB, great company, Bamford's, massive business all over the world. They've just received the biggest order, £65 million, 2,100 vehicles to, is it Sun Rentals in the UK. Great. Surely that JCB should have a 50% rule of origin or a 30% rule of origin, where the government give them some tax breaks, or they give them some initiative or a green or a carbon credit or whatever you want to say, in order that that percentage gets higher and higher each year with UK manufacturing. The same as JCB. JCB can rock up in, and apologies if I keep using JCB as the example, but they can rock up in India, they can go to Pakistan, they've got funding and they've got power. 10 years ago, I went off to the Middle East and looked at the construction was coming out of the 2007, it was picking back up again. What can we do? So Ramfoam went out there, and we haven't got this huge pool of money. And we looked at how we could service and export more. And I've seen many companies from the UK go over there, and if you work out the cost of a flight, £500, the cost of a hotel, £600-700, a week meeting could probably cost £3,000. So many companies don't, because they haven't got the power of JCB. But I've gone over to the Middle East. I've got a 150,000 square foot facility there. It took me a long time, 10 years. We could have turned our back on it. But perseverance, had we have had some help or a partner that had been there and done it, it would have been an awful lot easier. And the one thing that we need to look at is we're Britain, you know, great British manufacturing. Everywhere I've been, and I was international director, I used to travel to probably 10 to 14 countries a month. They all looked at the UK because they know that we were good at manufacturing. And everywhere that I went into businesses, normally always had a British engineer there because we got the knowledge, the experience. And it's sad to see that companies won't, and a lot of companies on this call probably wouldn't look to venture out to the Middle East or Dubai. I mean, Saudi's going to explode. It's going to be, you know, the stuff that's going on there. You know, the UK manufacturers need some help to get over there because the products that we have here, they need.
Okay, I'd love it if people would jump in on this conversation because I can see a lot of nodding heads and a lot of these things I know are sort of either sweet spots or sour spots. I don't know which way to put it, but they are topics that bedevil us in the sector, which is, you know, whether it's a relationship with government, whether it's cohesion in the sector, whether it's support for export, whether we're adventurous enough, or whether we're already out there and just not necessarily shouting about it. I know that there are so many companies doing such fantastic things. Please, somebody jump in. Steve, thank you if you've got your hand up.
Yeah. To either Paul or Timothy, I don't mind, but the question is simply have you been on the telly? In other words, if Greg from the food programs was going around GCB in the factory the other night, and it was very, very good. But it would strike me that you've got an example that is equally worthy of a half-hour television program at prime time, because so it's part of like the more broader communication and awareness of not just probably the people on this call who are the choir, but to the general population.
Well, they've been on manufacturing TV. What can I tell you? I mean, there we go.
Manufacturing TV first, and then the world.
It was very good, Nick. I watched it.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right, Steve. And this is, you know, I'm very pleased to see Greg Wallace doing this. I know this is the first time I think he's gotten outside of the sort of FCMG sector, and he's done something which involves engineering. I haven't seen the show yet, so I'll definitely do that on catch up. I get somewhat annoyed by his overexcitable thing. But I suppose if it's accessible, makes it accessible to people who for whom this is new territory. Well, hey, that is fantastic. And yeah, I mean, Tim, did you get much local press or national press?
I'll be totally honest. We were in the paper probably every week. We were on BBC News. I think the BBC came round initially because they'd found out.
Was this local news?
BBC Midlands.
Yeah.
And they come round originally to maybe look at what we were doing. And when the correspondent came in, she was like, "Hang on a minute, there's 200-300 people in here, and you're making them in the UK." I was like, "Yeah." So you're not just buying them in and selling them on? I said, no, and it turned in from what we didn't realize was going to be quite a negative story to they couldn't believe it was all singing, all dancing. And I think that they showed it 2 or 3 times. The newspapers, I think, were in the Daily Mail, the Express and Star, the local, a lot of the manufacturing gazettes.
I think, for me, I think it was in the news, but it would have been more in the news had it been misappropriation of funds, because actually there was misappropriation of funds, and they definitely went looking for that story. And I definitely got one journalist seemed quite disappointed when speaking to them. Actually, it was a good news story and something we should celebrate from UK manufacturing. And Tim is not the long lost cousin of Alok Sharma or whoever else government needed to be.
A chumocracy, if ever I heard one. Yeah.
But isn't that sad that, I mean, obviously bad news sells, but it was because the spotlight should have been on. And it's not just Ramfoam, you know, we had the people that we had, the partners that we had, everybody played a part, you know, the bacon sandwich lady at the end of the road, all these people played a part in delivering it. And there was people that did masks, and there was people that did aprons, and there was people that did sanitizer, and we clubbed together and made it work. And I think you can't just switch on and off manufacturing. I mean, we had somebody call us up and say, oh, can we get 5 million? This was before we'd started to produce. And we're like, they're not on the shelf. We have to gear up. You can't just switch this thing on. And I think, and then you can't just switch it off. It's a hose pipe. You switch the tap off, but guess what? Depending on how long the hose pipe is, the water keeps on coming out.
Yeah. Who else has got some thoughts they'd like to share on this, or questions they'd like to ask? Because it is an extraordinary story. And as I say, I think it has huge ramifications. If you dig deep into this story, I think there are so many lessons to be learned around support, around procurement, around solid government understanding. I mean, Tim, I accept your reticence on the reasoning behind the cancellation of the contract when it got to 115 million. But frankly, I'm pretty appalled by the whole thing, as I'm sure others are too. And it's that kind of not unjoined up thinking that goes on that so infuriates people in the sector, because with just a little bit of understanding and a little bit of, you know, direction from government, there's nothing really that we couldn't take on and succeed at. Who else got some thoughts they'd like to share on this? Lots of people talking in the chat. I'd like them to talk on the call. He throws out a challenge and nobody picks it up. Seriously, come on, guys. Okay, in that case, Tim. Oh, Steve, you always come to the rescue. Good man. Off you go.
I'd just like to ask Paul. You seem to have this immense expertise in Warwick, and I think a lot of it was developed through their interaction with the car industry. How long has it taken you to maybe thinking, well, I'd like to work in manufacturing, for the organisation to develop at Warwick University?
I can't take the credit for WMG. The late great Professor Bhattacharya, and I hope everybody here knows who Lord Bhattacharya was, and he's somebody whose life should have really been celebrated. And again, somebody who's his passing, I think, at the start of 2020, barely got a footnote in the UK, and yet was mentioned all around the world. Again, something we need to look to our media. He had the vision, or the radical thought, that it's all very well in engineering. He was an engineering prof from Birmingham originally, and before we brought him over and saw the light at Warwick, he had the revolutionary thought, well, it's all very well and good doing all this academic excellence stuff, but unless we can apply it to solve real world problems, it's not really very much use. And so he collaborated with, I think it was a Rover Group at the time, or its predecessors, and built up strong relationships with the Rover Group, and it really sprung out of that. So we've got a very strong relationship with Jaguar Land Rover, Nissan, a whole host of other automotive companies. And you know, my background, I worked for years and years in defence research, aerospace, defence and aerospace, and then and we always looked over the shoulder to the automotive sector and say, how can we can get things out so quickly, so grass is always greener, and then into small business. And only then after that I went to join WMG. And my view on academia while I was working in industry was, it's all very good, all this clever stuff, but it's not very applied, not very practical, and nobody ever responds in a remotely sensible timescale. And one of the key things for me and the group is, we have to respond on the timescales of our client, our SMEs. So if they want an answer the next day, we give them an answer the next day. If they want a job doing over the weekend, and we really need to do it, we'll pull out the stops and try and get it done for the over the weekend. And that's what I think the mindset is. Most of the team at WMG, we're not academics, we're not researchers. Most of us have an industrial background, but a real passion to support manufacturing, because it's hard. The job is hard enough. Making anything is really hard, even simple things, especially simple things. Even making them in volume, selling them, making a profit with all the changes that are going on is a really tough job. So anything we can do to help that. And as I say, we have got world-class expertise in our universities if we know how to tap into them. And that's where my job and the job of my compatriots at WMG, I think, like to excel, we able to translate that sort of industry need, because we've lived there, we've had the pains, we've got the scars, some of us quite literally, and into sort of say, right, yeah, we can help you with that problem on production line. We could look at, the 7 wastes. We can understand that sort of language. We can look at sort of changes of suppliers, and look at sort of take some of the risk out of it. You can't supply it overseas. We'll look to try and find an acceptable local supplier, which will meet other the specs. Okay, it hasn't all got the tech specs. We'll use some of all the equipment to get the tech specs. So sorry,
to me, that sounds like a full 1 hour television program.
I have been on TV. I don't
examples of everything people want to see, and typical of Britain in the manufacturing sector. It seems to me we have great things. I mean, amazing things, but we just need to communicate, and we need so that we develop more of them. I just think that's probably a full hour. So
and celebrate our champions.
Yeah, and I think it's worthy of note that after this year, we've worked with Warwick Manufacturing Group, and we've had 2 interns for just under 3 months, I think, Paul.
Yeah.
And they're obviously on their summer break, and initially we just wanted 1, but we interviewed, I think it was 6, or you managed to get us down to 6, and we interviewed 6, and there was 2 standouts, and we ended up doing sort of going in 2 directions. We hadn't got a fully automated cost modeling system, and we were still guilty of using a piece of pen, a paper, and a piece and a pencil on our costings. And finger in the air, that'll take 7 minutes on certain things. And we now have an automated costing system that was compiled in 10 weeks from a whiz kid from Warwick Uni. We then had another gentleman that we were looking at a product that's molded that we've not done, and he's designed a full product range for us I think he did it in 7 weeks.
Yeah, for a new sector. And he was from Bath, wasn't he?
Bath, yeah. Great, so, 2 great guys. 21 years old, I think, were they, Paul?
I know, it's frightening, the skills they had. And that's, again, something that, it's a real privilege to be able to be a part of.
And that's one thing that I can recommend, that for the cost that it a minimal cost, should we say, and the support, because the 2 guys had the whole support of everybody's brain at Warwick Manufacturing Group, and all of the facilities and all of the machinery. For those 12 weeks and the backup that it created, I'd recommend looking at it for everybody.
Okay, John Hardwick.
Evening all. Thanks for the case study, really, both Paul and Tim. And I guess my question is to both of you, because I'm very interested in the change aspects of this. And, when there's a crisis and, it's a war footing, you can move heaven and earth and things can be done in 10 days that usually take 10 months. But I suppose my question is, what learnings are transferable? If there's learnings coming out of what you achieved in that war footing, are there things that are transferable or that people on this call could apply in a non-war footing? What are the things that are actually something that they could take away from the call and apply back in the day job from what you've learned?
I would say, from my point of view, it's to celebrate your as I said, celebrate your weaknesses. Quickly identify something that you're not good at or that you could be better at. And whilst we all try to improve, It's, you know, I'm a firm believer of, we used to have breakfast meetings. So what we used to do is 3 times a week, we'd put people together that would never normally have lunch together, or they'd never normally probably even speak. And we changed the dynamic, and we'd have these little, the company would pay for the 6 sandwiches or whatever that group was at that time. And they talk about each other and actually realize that, hang on a minute, that guy that stands on the back of that machine actually isn't a bad bloke. He just looks miserable, or he just, you know, and it was, I can't reiterate how much it taught me with teamwork. It's having that, you know, giving that information, having these sort of town hall meetings, and having a bit of a huddle and pushing everybody in the right direction. And you can say that, you know, these books and all, you know, our facility, you know, you know that the people are there and how it works. But if you get everyone on board and you're going in the right direction, it really does help.
I think I can completely resonate with that. It's a great answer. I think it's that purpose, isn't it? The common purpose, and creating that common purpose when it's not being thrust down your throat from literally from a virus, but finding what is that common purpose in your daily life. And
everybody's input matters. You know, some of our, I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos that are on LinkedIn. There's a gentleman called Richard Rudge that's worked for us for many, many years. And he came up when we were starting to manufacture it. Obviously, he's on the machine. I said, what can we do better, Rich? And he went, I've never really been asked that. And I was like, well, what do you think? How can we do this? What can we do? What can we do? You're the man on the ground. You're the man that uses this machine day in, day out. Talk to me. So we had a chat and we did it. We ended up being able to put 2 machines back to back. You know what? We'll have a skipper that's a feeder running around, and we'll have 3 people loading it. And then, you know, Paul, the technical director, he jumped in, and everyone spoke, and we did it. And we'd actually did this. Here's another one for you. So it's not all rosy. You know, we have manufacturing issues. We had some issues before December with breakdowns. But the day before Christmas, Asda, we did a food bank donation, and we basically filled the Asda van. And in hindsight, I should have had it delivered to the food bank. But for some reason, I just delivered it to work. And I didn't realize that it doesn't come in bags. So I'd got 1,200 items on the Asda van that the guy can't leave the baskets because he said he's in trouble for leaving baskets with people. So we've got to empty it. So I went into the factory and said, right, I need some help. Now, I didn't tell anybody what needed to be done, but everybody knew that that van was full of food. One bloke was going to put the baskets on the floor, and us guys and girls had to get it all in a manner without breaking anything. And it was done within the 8 minutes that he's only, or 7 minutes that he's only supposed to be there. And it worked. And nobody told anybody what to do, because the teamwork, and whether it was for charity or whatever it was, and it happened. And what I came away out of this, and we've actually got a bit of a meeting on it next week. How can we take what happened there? We had directors, we had cleaners, we had dispatch. We did it all without any instruction, just watching, leading. So how can we mirror that in everything else that we're doing?
Oh, that's a great story, Tim. Thank you. Joe Dancy, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, really interesting to hear about this, and reassuring to see some progress about buying British. I think the mess that the Prime Minister got himself into yesterday, talking about lateral flow tests from the UK, is nearly 2 years into the crisis, is just discombobulating, to put it mildly. But it reflects that sort of my concern more widely is this sort of British procurement side. I mean, I think Sharon Graham, the new General Secretary of Unite Trade Union, was absolutely right to call out HS2 last week around the lack of the government's target for steel in building such a huge project. You know, and we read that it's the French who are providing the steel for that. So, you know, I think the stories are really important and the communication has to happen. And it's also about trying to get the government back to an idea of having an industrial strategy, which Theresa May put into the title of the business department, but now seems to have been dropped under pressure from the Treasury. And I just look, you can see how the French are successful. The French make a priority of procuring domestic steel, and that's a positive. You compare with the Germans, we are paying 60-70% more for industrial energy than the Germans. That's their industrial strategy that prioritizes manufacturing. And again, steel, the United States uses tariffs. I mean, the unfortunate thing for Brexit seems to be that the Europeans no longer have steel tariffs, and yet we are still lumbered with them. So I guess my question is, whether it's a point or a question, but rather about these are success stories, but we need to shout about it. But actually, how can we use the shouting about it to get governments, not just on the political side, but also from the Whitehall side, to see, this can't be just about odds and sods and one-off contracts. This has surely we've got to change the way we do industrial thinking and strategy in this country, and that still seems to me to be where we have a massive weakness.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. That is really core. I agree with that thinking right the way across. There's another bit of the story, because we do a lot of policy bashing and all that on this call. I want to stick with the Ramfoam story and the WMG story, because there is another bit of the story which I think is worth telling as we approach 7 o'clock. It's about the fact that obviously a £15 million a year company had a contract which was worth at the end 115 million. So Tim, what did you decide to do with what frankly was a hell of a windfall, deserved one at that? And how did WMG, or how are they helping you? We've heard about the interns, but I know there's more. Develop your business to capitalize on this and not just stick the cash in the bank.
So we've reinvested. We've reinvested in machinery, new machinery, new systems, new people, a senior management structure. But I'm not sure about everyone else on this call, but I am noticing that I go into the office every day. The traffic up until, should we say, lockdown 4, it sounds like a Street Fighter game. If the working from home, it's been taking me, so I live 34 miles from the factory. 11 years ago, 12 years ago, I could get there in about 41 minutes at 6 o'clock in the morning. Before the pandemic hit, I probably got to about an hour and 5, an hour and 10. Since maybe September, it's taken me 2 hours to get there every day, 2 hours to get home. Now, working from home is hit again, and I'm not sure if anyone else has seen this, but the roads are empty. I'm sailing into work at any time and I'm leaving at any time, and it's not that bad. What I'm seeing is that there is a bit of a downturn in our, yes, it's Christmas and January is always a quiet month, but December and January, there has been a downturn. So what we've looked at, we need to come up with our own product. So our main business, we could say, was a service sector. We sell slices of bread for companies across the whole of Europe to turn into a sandwich. So what we've been working with the Warwick Manufacturing Group is making our own products, coming up with new products, new services, and also how we can get value add. We've just been, I hate to say it, slices and dices, selling sheets of foam, and we sell a sheet of foam for £10. Someone makes it into £150. We've never really got involved in that value add, and we're challenging every single thing that we used to do. Why are we doing it like this? We've always done it like that. Well, not anymore. Every single point of the business now we've overhauled, we're changing, we're mapping out processes, we're mapping out procedures, and we're trying to automate everything that we can to try and save whatever we can in order to grow. Because I'm not sure, again, with anyone on this call, but our margins probably over the last 2 years have took a beating. And I saw article pop up that 7 in 10 companies will be putting their prices up within the next month, and that's not just down to raw material. They're saying inflation is at 6% by April. Gas and electricity is shooting up. Fuel, I mean, look at fuel. What was it, £1.30 this time last year? and we're at 154, are we? You know, things are going up. So we've reinvested. We've brought on new people. We're opening up another facility in Europe. We're looking to obviously increase our factory in Saudi Arabia and put it back.
But Tim, quick question. You say you're looking to create more value-add products. Have you been able to identify products that are currently being made offshore that you can bring back to this country and make yourselves and have the high volume and higher value-add element to it?
Yes, so we've itemized 3 at the moment. We're talking to 2, shall we say, distributors for those items. But at the moment, with the shipping costs, I mean, shipping costs are astronomical. I don't know if anybody ships anything from America, but we've gone from to Dubai, $2,000, it was a container, to $24,000. I don't know if anyone's got children, but I bought my son a Nerf goat cart this time last year, and it was £101. I went into Smith's before Christmas, and that same goat cart made in China is 171. And that's because the shipping used to be £7 a goat cart, and now it's £70 a goat cart. But we've seen personally a lot of reshoring. But what I'm worried about is when the shipping costs stabilize, if government and things haven't done anything, people are going to naturally default back to China or the Far East. And we're going to we're just a stepping stone in that cycle. So we need something to help all of us as manufacturers, that we're not just going to be used because there's investment. People are going to have to grow to support it, to then next year it'll go out the country again. But I think we're missing out on as well, every contract that's handed to a UK company, there's money that stays here. There is the VAT, there's the tax, there's the money, there's money for the local economies, there's a PAYE, national insurance. The government gives something to China, the money's gone. There's nothing being spent back here, it's left. So, out of everything, you could probably put a value of, I remember once, a tie, they went back to how much a tie actually costs when we're at university, and, the farmer that's making the yarn and blah, 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 and a tie is what, a fiver, a tenner?
Yeah. I think what you're expressing, Tim, is something that a lot of us have been considering, which is that, terrible though the pandemic has been, all crises create opportunities, and you've identified some. And I think you're absolutely right to say that if we don't grasp these opportunities and make something of it, then just going back to the way we were before is not going to be good enough. We know we have a productivity problem. We know we can resolve it. And people like Paul Milne, WMG and others in the catapult, that's what they're there to do. We've got the resources, we've got the skills. It's just bringing it all together. And if we let this slip through our fingers, I think we're going to feel, or many of us are going to feel really aggrieved by that. Yep. So Paul, maybe you could just we've got a couple of minutes to go, just a thought on that, about sort of capturing some of the magic juice that we've distilled out of the last rather terrible 2 years.
So I'll turn it around and ask a question. It's the start of a new year. So what I would ask each and every company on the call, what are you going to do differently this year? And if I were to make a plea, is say, spend some time working on the business, not in the business. Ask for help. There's a lot of help out there, not all at WMG, I have to say, and we are good, but there are other good people out there. So please use that support. We know the challenges. We've been good at surviving in adversity. Manufacturing in the UK has had it tough for generations, and we have survived. We're still one of the in the top 10 manufacturing nations in the world. So we've still got a lot of capability. So it's tapping that capability, having the confidence, and we touched on it, making some noise about it, and what are you going to change? Because there's a world full of opportunities if we go for it, and if we get the support, and we can take, we're there for the journey on the companies. We don't want to just help a company and then forget it and tick a box and move on to the next one. We want to create success. We want to create, make UK manufacturing grow UK manufacturing and make us a more sustainable. Huge opportunities around sustainability. Government's on about net zero, but it's precious little information on how to solve that problem. Now, I reckon in and around this room, each of us has some good practice to share. Let's get sharing that.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and bless you all. Paul, thank you, and Tim, thank you. I really do like to let people get off at 7, and there's always a delicious bottle of Malbec waiting downstairs for me, so I'm itching to get towards it. But the point you made, Paul, that is, I think, absolutely, and Tim made it as well, is that money that goes in is not pound, put a pound in, get a pound out. A pound that goes into manufacturing comes out at £8, or maybe that's an exaggeration, but they do say that for every job in manufacturing, there are at least 7 or 8 more dependent on it. So this is 2022. Let us keep beating this drum and getting this message out as loudly as possible. Paul Milne, Tim Mulqueen, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Thank you, everybody, for being on the call. Absolutely super. We're going to get something really special lined up for February. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great week. Take care.
Thank you, one and all.